The next section you're going to discuss is offer to contract. A contract requires three things. Contracts require an offer, and acceptance, and consideration. You need three things for a contract: offer, acceptance, and consideration. This section is offer. An offer contains a specific promise and a specific demand. Going back to the original bilateral example I gave you, bilateral contract example I gave you, I promise you $1,000 if you will paint my house. So the demand is you paint my house, and the promise is $1,000. Or a lot of times the offer may be, I promise to give you this laptop if you promise to give me $500. So an offer can be a number of things, depending on if your company is a service company, or if your company is a merchandiser, a retailer, or if you're the client. As a customer or client, you can be the one making the offer. Hey, I'll tell you what, I think that's listed too high, $1,000 for a TV. I'll give you $600 for the TV. So you can make the offer yourself as a customer or the client of a company. Think about Craigslist. That's a really good example of, when you see something online, you go somewhere and it's negotiating. It's all about offering. And then once you come to an agreement, the other person accepts it. And then the consideration is what's being exchanged. So money for the TV, that kind of thing. An advertisement is usually not specific enough to constitute an offer. Usually. So, when you see an ad on TV and it says, 2014 Black Mustang, $10,000. Okay? That is not an offer. It's not specific enough because, number one, how many cars do they have for sale at that price? They might have one, they might have 100, but they obviously don't have enough for every person that is watching that commercial, okay? So they couldn't possibly fulfill their end of the contract if everyone that's watching the commercial went and wanted to get their 2014 Mustang for $10,000. They also didn't say who can accept the offer. In other words, the first 5 people here with $10,000 cash will get the Mustang, something like that. It has to be very specific as to who can accept it and how many there are. An example, a very famous case regarding advertisements, and you can look this one up on Wikipedia, is called Lefkowitz versus Great Minneapolis Surplus Store. It's a very famous advertisement case. And it's an example of when an advertisement can constitute an offer. In this case, Great Minneapolis Surplus Store, they sold lots of clothing, that kind of thing. They put an ad in the newspaper, and the ad said, Saturday, 9 a.m. sharp, 3 brand new fur coats worth to $100, first come, first served, $1 each. All right? So they said how many fur coats they had. There were 3. They said how much they were. They were going to charge $1 each for these fur coats. And they said who can accept them. First come, first served. Mr. Lefkowitz was the first person to come on the Saturday after seeing the advertisement. He said he was ready to pay his $1. He said, I have it ready. Here's my $1. But each time, so when he came, and he came for several weeks in a row because they kept running this advertisement, for first person or first 2 people on each Saturday, Mr. Lefkowitz kept coming with his $1, and the store owners kept saying that there was a house rule that it was for women only, that only women could come in and get this special deal on this coat. Even though the advertisement didn't say that at all. It didn't say it was only for women. It said first come, first served. So Mr. Lefkowitz sued, and the court sided with him. The court said that the advertisement was specific. It said how many there were. It said there was 3 fur coats. It said, at this particular time, 9 a.m. on Saturday, and it said who can accept the offer. First come, first serve. And so the court ruled in Mr. Lefkowitz's favor. So even though the general rule is that an advertisement can't constitute an offer, there are times when it is specific enough that it can. Sometimes it can constitute an offer. So be careful when you are advertising and in your marketing to where you need to know whether you might be on the hook for the fur coats or not. Of course, as a Christian, if you say you're going to do something, then you should do something. Your word should be your word, and people should be able to trust you as a Christian business person. Okay. In order for an advertisement to be an offer, it must list the quantity of items, to be sold, and who is capable of accepting the offer. The person making the offer is the offeror. So it's the word offer, but then put an OR at the end. Offeror. The person to whom the offer is made is the offeree. So you have the offerer. So in the case in the Lefkowitz versus Great Minneapolis Surplus Store, Great Minneapolis was the offerer and Lefkowitz was the offeree. Offers can terminate through a variety of means. So just because you've made an offer, someone has made an offer to you, it doesn't mean it's good forever, does it? So offers can terminate, and you have to accept it, at a certain time. So things that might terminate the offer include, number 1, a lapse of a reasonable period of time. So if I come to you and I say, if you paint my house, I'll give you $1,000, and then 5 years later, maybe you're like, hey, I have a little time. I'm going to go paint your house. That offer had probably terminated already by a reasonable time. You needed to have done it pretty quickly, right? If that was the unilateral contract, if you paint my house, give you $1,000, even that wouldn't last forever. Number 2, a provision in the offer. And this happens all the time. I'll give you this computer. I will sell this computer to you for $500, but the offer is only good till next Friday. So the offer itself might have in it a provision for how long it's good for. Third, an offeree's rejection or counteroffer. Counteroffer. Under the common law, a counteroffer acts as a rejection. So if I said, I'll give you $1,000. I'll promise you $1,000 if you promise me you'll paint my house. If you said, I'll paint your house, but only if you promise me, say, $1,500. Okay? And then if I said, you know what, forget it. I don't want to do a deal with you at all. I can do that because you made me a counteroffer. A counteroffer terminates the original offer. Even if you said, no, I'll do it for $1,000, it doesn't matter. The offer is terminated as soon as you made the counteroffer under the common law. Now, Article 2 of UCC changes that a little bit, but if it's a common law agreement, a counteroffer acts as termination. Fourth way the offers can terminate is through revocation of the offer. So I can terminate the offer, say I will, the contract, if you paint my house, I'll give you $1,000, the unilateral contract. If you paint my house, I'll give you $1,000. I can terminate that up until you start, painting my house. Say the next day I change my mind. You know what? I changed my mind. I don't need my house painted after all. So I can revoke my own offer. That's okay. However, under the doctrine of quasi-contract, and we're going to cover another term called promissory estoppel later, but under those two doctrines, I couldn't revoke my offer once you actually started and made a good way through your painting my house. I couldn't revoke it at that point. Okay, so revoking the offer. Acceptance of the offer. Remember again, 3 things are required for a contract: offer, acceptance, consideration. We just talked about offer. Now we're talking about acceptance. Acceptance of an offer is necessary to create a valid, enforceable contract. A valid, enforceable contract. A bilateral contract is accepted by the offerees making the required promise. Again, a bilateral contract is a promise for a promise. Unilateral contracts are accepted differently. They are accepted by performing a requested act. So the way that you accept a unilateral contract is by doing something. Another example of a unilateral contract is a reward. Crime Stoppers will give $5,000 to the person who gives information leading to the arrest of this known fugitive. So the way that you accept that contract isn't by calling them up and say, I accept. That's not how you accept it with a promise, or hey, I promise to go get you information. That's not accepting that contract. You accept it by providing the information. You accept that contract, that offer, that unilateral offer, by performing, by actually giving the information that leads to the arrest. So that's a unilateral contract. Under the common law, the mirror image rule requires that an acceptance mirror the offer in order to constitute a valid acceptance. Okay, so think of a mirror, and you have the offer over here, and then you have the acceptance. They have to mirror each other. They have to be identical. So if I said, I offer you $1,000 if you promise to paint my house Thursday, and you say, I agree, I promise to paint your house on Friday, that is not a mirror image. And because of that, your acceptance actually works as a counteroffer, and it works as a rejection and a termination of the offer. So now the original person, the offeror, can yank the offer off the table because your acceptance did not perfectly mirror the offer. So that's under the common law. If the acceptance is not identical to the offer, under the common law, it constitutes a counteroffer and acts as a rejection of the offer. In general, an offeree's failure, so an offeree, remember, is the person that is getting the offer, not the person making the offer, but the person receiving the offer. So it would be you, if I'm offering you $1,000 to paint my house, you'd be the offeree. In general, an offeree's failure to reject an offer does not imply acceptance. A long time ago, there were some deceptive business people who would send products to customers that never ask for the products, and then they would bill them for those products. Something like, hey, here's this exercise equipment, and we're going to bill you for it, if you don't return it or something like that. And people that maybe they didn't return it, then they would start getting bills. The thing is, they never accepted it. They never asked for it, and so in general, your failure to reject an offer does not imply you acceptance. So you can't say, I offer you $1,000 if you promise to paint my house, and if you just stand there and say nothing, I'm going to assume that you're accepting the offer. It doesn't work like that. You accept the offer by making the required promise in a bilateral contract or by performing in a unilateral contract. An offer is accepted when the acceptance is mailed, not when it is received. This is known as the mailbox rule. So if you went home and thought about it and said, yes, I can paint your house. I'm willing to do that. I have the time. $1,000 sounds like a fair price. And you write, I accept your offer to paint your house, and you put it in the mailbox on, say, Monday. But and say it takes 2 days to get to the offeror. So the offeror doesn't get it till Wednesday. Tuesday, the day in between, okay, let's say I'm the offeror. I go to you and say, you know what, I don't need my house painted anymore. I revoke my offer. You can't do that. Even though you haven't received the acceptance yet, because of the mailbox rule, they accepted the offer whenever they put it in the mailbox. Whenever the mail person picked it up. I mean, that's when you accepted it. So even though I didn't get the acceptance till Wednesday, you accepted it on Monday. And I can't revoke the deal on Tuesday. Does that make sense? The UCC has a different rule when the contract for goods is between two merchants. And so this, a lot of times business contracts, it's not between, say, like, as opposed to a retailer like Walmart and just a customer off the street. That wouldn't apply here. This is between two merchants. When two people regularly engage in selling or buying certain things. So let's say that you're Walmart and you need a lot of, or let's say you're U-Haul and you need a lot of boxes. And then you have this box supplier over here. And so these are two merchants who regularly deal in, let's say, boxes, okay? So if it's a contract for goods and it's between two merchants, the mailbox rule, excuse me, we're talking about something other than the mailbox rule. When we talked about the mirror image rule, this next section is referring to the different rule in regarding to the mirror image rule. Remember how the mirror image rule, I said earlier, the acceptance has to mirror the offer? Okay, the UCC has a different rule for contracts for goods when it's between two merchants. New terms added by the offeree become part of the contract unless. So the assumption is, and this happens all the time, so let's say U-Haul has their own form, their own form, their order form that they send to the box manufacturer. We want 10,000 boxes of this specificity. We want it, at this time frame. And if there's any disputes between us, say we can take it to court or something like that. And then the box manufacturer, they accept it, but let's say their acceptance form has something different on it. And the acceptance form says something like, yes, we can take any dispute to court, but we can also arbitrate it. And we need to arbitrate it first, go to an arbiter first, before going to court, something like that. So maybe it might add a term. Or maybe it says, we're gonna break up the shipment into 3 or 4 different shipments, this 10,000 boxes. And maybe that wasn't on the original order form. Okay, so sometimes they call it the battle of the forms. Between the person ordering something and the person getting it. A lot of times they have their own, sometimes pre-filled in forms that each side just fills in a few blanks and then sends them to the other side. So what do you do when there's differences? If it's between merchants, the UCC assumes that the new terms become part of the contract. They don't work as a counteroffer like it does in the common law, like the mirror image rule. It doesn't work like that. That assumes that it becomes part of the contract unless, 3 things. Unless, 1, the offer expressly limits acceptance to the original terms. So if U-Haul says in their order form, these are the terms and you have to accept it only on these terms. Anything else, that's not part of the contract. These are the only terms. If it limits it on its own terms. Number 2, the proposed terms materially alter the contract. Materially alter the contract. So maybe the box company says, we'll ship you $10,000, but we're going to ship you the boxes at $10 a box instead of what you asked for at $1 a box. Well, that would materially alter the contract. And so then the terms that materially alter the contract don't become part of the contract. Number 3, the offerer rejects the proposed terms. So that's why if you're making a deal with someone and you order something and they come back and the form that they send you accepting your offer adds a term, you need to reject those proposed terms if you don't agree to them. Read the acceptance if you're a merchant and they're a merchant, because otherwise those new terms have become part of the offer. So that's a third way that the new terms don't become part of the agreement under the UCC for the sale of goods, is if you reject the proposed terms. So you better do that pretty quick. So read these, if someone's accepting an offer, you need to read all of that just to make sure that you agree to the new terms.